Hi everyone, this is Paulos. In this video I'd like to give you guys a Vi deck tech video. I think Vi is really well positioned at the moment, with Icelander being gone, one of his bad matchups. I think he might even be the best deck in the format right now. And in this video I'd just like to give you guys a short deck tech, explain all the cards I use, and also give you guys my sideboard guide and how to play each matchup. So first of all, two things. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of a cold right now, so my voice can be a little bit more difficult to hear. And second of all, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Sander Neeft, which is the main maker of this deck. He made like 90% of the card choices, and I tested a lot with him for Worlds. But most of the good ideas were his. Most of the bad ideas came from me. I don't think any card I suggested is still in the deck, but all that aside, I know how to play the deck. Sander's just a really good Vi player. He won the Calling Utrecht with Vi, when Vi still had Belittle and Stubbies. He won that event, so he definitely knows what he's talking about. I'll just give the deck tech and show the choices we made. We both played a version of this deck at Worlds. For me it went really well. I went 6-2 with this deck. Now it's slightly updated because Icelander's gone, of course, but I only lost to a Icelander in day 2, and the last round I also lost to a Rhinar, which is very sad because Rhinar is supposed to be a good matchup for this deck. But yeah, Vi is just incredibly strong. If you like aggro, if you like being proactive, if you like an easy deck to play, that's easy to play at the highest level, then I definitely recommend Vi. However, there's still a lot of nuance in Vi, and you can definitely do some things wrong, and you can definitely improve your gameplay. And hopefully in this video you'll find some useful advice to take into your games. So what I'd like to do is just go over some cards and highlight their strengths and weaknesses, and how you should use them. And the first card I'd like to start with, well, we know Flamescale Furnace. It's just a really good card. It blocks, it prevents on hits. Sometimes you can even use its ability to gain some extra resources. But the real star of this deck, and the card around which this deck has been built, is Mask of the Bouncing Lynx. So this card is incredibly strong. Most of the time this card just says do 7 damage to your opponent, which is crazy that one card can do that. You usually want to crack this card when you have a Spreading Flames or an Art of War in play, or preferably even both. And the thing you'd like to get with this is either a Lava Burst or a Salt the Wound and hit the opponent for 7 damage. So what this deck does is it almost plays the Bouncing Lynx in every matchup except for Dromai. And it just tries to raise the opponent, make them the first ones to block and screw their turns. And this card is perfect for that. So what this deck wants to do is it always wants to go second. You never want to go first against anybody. There are some matchups which are a little bit doubtful, in which I'd go first or second. For example, Icelander was one, but I still went second there. Bravo is also one. I think you still want to go second against Bravo as well. And they have some weird ones like Dromai. I'd still want to go second against Dromai. You just want to take the advantage immediately, hit your opponent as hard and fast as possible, and take over the game from there. That also means you don't want to block in this deck at all. Sometimes you do have to block some on hits, like a good snatch from the opponent, or a CNC if you have an Art of War or something in Arsenal. But apart from that, don't block, just do as much damage as possible and you will always end up ahead. This deck is just the best at doing damage. It outvalues Dash.io, it outvalues Bravo in the long term. Just believe in the power of this deck and it will reward you. and a huge part of that is Mask of the Bouncing Links. Now, I know a lot of people play Kodachi Fi, but what we ended up on was Emberblade is just way more consistent than Kodachi. First of all, Emberblade does more damage than Kodachi, since Kodachi costs 2 resources to hit twice, and that does 2 damage. Emberblade, 2 resources, 3 damage, and is also Draconic, which helps with Phoenix Flame. Now, I understand some reasonings for Kodachi, because usually whenever Vice play Kodachi, they also play Mask of Momentum. And what Kodachi just tries to do is generate 2 Mask of Momentum triggers in one turn. So you have to block both of them, or just draw a card, which is very good for you. Yeah, but we just thought we want the most consistent deck possible. No shenanigans, just raw damage, and Emberblade seems to do that. What Emberblade also does is it allows you to play some weird cards like this Rounds on Me, which I'll come to in a second. And overall, it's just really good for the Fi ability, because it's Draconic and just does a lot of damage. So yeah, Snapdragon Scalers. This card you usually want to use on a Snap or a Blaze Headlong if your turn otherwise doesn't work, since your deck is really dependent on having a starter like a red brand or a yellow brand, or a Mounting Anger, or a Spreading Flames, or a Rising Resentment. You usually want to start off with those cards, and then your Emberblade is live and you can attack with it. Snapdragons, another cool trick with this is if you have an Enlightened Strike in hand, you can choose the mode Draw a Card to spike a turn, if you really can't do anything else, and then just give it go again. Don't be shy to use this card, because it sometimes happens that you don't use it at all and you really want to gain value out of it. But then again, don't also use it too early. If you can end your chain with a Snatch, I would do that. And usually if your Snatch draws you a card, I would just put that card in Arsenal instead of using Snapdragons to potentially play it. So use it sparingly, but also whenever it's good, you can just use it. So try to find the balance. Then we have Shuko. This card is also extremely good. It just means a lot of damage. Whenever you need to block with something, block with Furnace first, and then Shuko. And try to save Shuko most of the time, because this card will do a lot of damage in the long run. This deck aims at getting a Shuko trigger every turn, with Phoenix Flame being base 2 or less, and usually you have something else like a brand with Cinder Claw, or a Lava Burst, or a Salt Wound. So this card, try to keep it, but if you need to block a Snatch, for example, you can just throw your Flamescast Furnace and a Shuko for it, and then it will cover that. So yeah, those are the equipment. We have some more equipment. I'll get to those in a moment. But first of all, let's just go through the deck and see what every card does. So first we have Blaze Headlong. This card is extremely good. 0 for 4 is above rate, and whenever you play a red card, it gains go again. Well, this deck has a lot of red cards in here, so it usually has go again. However, sometimes it doesn't, and then there is a moment when you can play Snapdragons on it. For example, last weekend I played a Battle Hardened, and I played a Fi Mirror, and in that Fi Mirror I lost a die roll and I had to go first, which is not good. But I drew a hand at my turn 0 which had Blaze Headlong, a blue, and 2 Lava Bursts. So in this hand was a little bit weird. I was like, okay, I can't really push damage turn 0, but I kind of need to, because yeah, I'm losing if I don't, since he's going second. So I chose to Blaze Headlong, crack my snaps on turn 0, pitch the blue for Emberblade, pay 1 for Fi ability, Phoenix Flame, and then play the Lava Burst for 6. When I played this, I leaked 3 damage, and my opponent also blocked with his Furnace, so essentially I gained 5 value out of that turn by cracking Snapdragons on turn 0. It was a little bit of a risk, but in aggro mirrors you need to take risks if you are behind, otherwise you'll just lose the game. So that's an example of where you'd use Snapdragons and what makes Blaze Headlong so good. Then we have some starters. We have the full package of Brand with Cinderclaw. These cards are the ones you want to lead the turn with, so you usually just want to go Brand with Cinderclaw. If you have more in hand, you first want to Emberblade. You want to keep as much information in your hand as possible, so it makes the opponent as difficult to block. This might seem very minor, but it actually can help a lot if your opponent is telegraphing your turn, like what comes next. Usually I always want to go starter, then Emberblade, and then do the path, the combat chain, which shows your opponent as less information as possible, and it will heavily reward you in the end. We also have the yellow Brand with Cinderclaws. These are just really good because they are also starters and they trigger Shuko. What they also do is make your next attack, this combat chain, draconic, and this can help for various reasons. First of all, it makes Vi's ability cheaper, and second of all, it can also do some nice things with spreading flames. So that's why we chose yellow Brand with Cinderclaw. Then we also have blue Brand. This card is just a blue to pitch for Emberblade, and whenever you have a full blue hand, it at least is a starter. Then we have Enlightened Strike. Enlightened Strike is kind of a double-edged sword. In the arrow mirror, it sometimes is very bad because you need 2 cards when playing it. However, it can also be really good whenever you have an extra Phoenix Flame in your graveyard. You can just get that from your graveyard to your hand and put it on the bottom with Enlightened Strike to attack for either 7 or draw cards. So if you close the combat chain, if you end the combat chain with an Enlightened Strike, in most cases I choose draw a card, and the sole reason for it is that buff power is worth 2 points of value because you gain 2 power, and draw a card can be upwards of 4 points of value because you can draw a Snatch, you can draw a Blaze Headlong, you can draw a starter. You can also kind of get punished by this and draw a This Rounds on Me or Warmongers, but usually that chance is so slight that it is just not worth it. So whenever you close the combat chain with this, this is your finisher, I choose draw a card all the time. Except when your opponent is at a low health total and you want to pressure them, then I choose +2. So that's Enlightened Strike. Flameco Awakening. Well, Flameco Awakening is very good with Enlightened Strike because it searches a Phoenix Flame. You can use this Phoenix Flame to pitch for Emberblade, making this essentially a 0-cost 3 attack, go again. But you can also do some cool things with Phoenix Flame, like play it and then having an extra Draconic Chain Link for Fi. You can also do some cool things with this, like playing a starter, that's red, then playing this, searching the Phoenix Flame, and then banishing the Phoenix Flame with Art of War. This is a really neat play, which loses you 1 damage for your starter, but overall it's just way better. So whenever you have that, that's really good. Then we have Lava Burst. Well, there's just a star in this deck. Usually a 0 for 5 or 6 with Shuka, which is just an insane rate. Usually with Mask of the Pouncing Lynx you'll just get this. However, when your opponent has taken a lot of hits or you want to kind of tempt your opponent to block, then you'd get Salto Wound, because then your opponent might think, well, I need to kind of block here, which usually is bad for them, to prevent some more damage. But Lava Burst overall, just a great card, also really good with Spreading Flames. Nothing more to say there. Then we have Lava Vein Loyalty, also can be a good chain link extender, and it just blocks 3. Which is really relevant sometimes because Bravo needs some 3 blocks, and it also is an attack action which is really good for Reinforce the Line, which I'll come to in the future. Then we have Mounting Anger. Mounting Anger is just one of the best cards in this deck. You will usually play this as a starter and your opponent either has to block it or let it go, and then it is essentially a 1 for 5 go again. You can just banish a card with cost 0 if you start with it and it gains 1 attack. Pretty simple. Usually you have a blue to pitch this, or to pitch the blue and then an Emberblade. So yeah, the Phoenix Flames, don't forget to put this in your graveyard. Tip for that, by the way, in real life, always use your Phoenix Flame, always put it with your equipment. So then you can never forget it. Put it with your equipment just put it in your equipment pile, and whenever you present your cards, you can present a 59 card deck. It's kinda it's not really that according to the rules, but no one will be hard about it. It's just a shortcut, and it will just save you a lot of losses, because if you forget your Phoenix Flame, you most of the time just lose so much that you just lose. Yeah, the second one is just aim for the Flame Call. We've landed on 2 as the good number, because drawing it is just really bad. It doesn't block, it just attacks for 1. So yeah, not recommended. Also, something that should be said about having 2 Phoenix Flames. If you are being fatigued by the opponent, you should know that this trick, which can save you against any fatigue match, which is Vi's ability has a once per turn instant. So you can activate it on either your opponent's turn or your turn. So this is good to know, because sometimes you don't have a starter, and you can pitch a blue to get a Phoenix Flame in your opponent's turn to still be able to start with a Phoenix Flame, and then also can being able to activate Vi again to get another Phoenix Flame. So this is also useful against fatigue, because in fatigue matchups you can just pitch a blue in your opponent's turn, get your Phoenix Flame, in your turn play the Phoenix Flame for 0, then pitching another blue to attack with Emberblade 3 go again. Then the 1 resource that's left, you can also pitch for Vi's ability to get another Phoenix Flame, which also has Shuko. So that's 5 damage that doesn't cost you any cards, which is really good against fatigue. So whenever you see a fatigue matchup, like Fatigue Dorinthea, Fatigue Bravo, be sure to have 2 Phoenix Flames in your deck, because you can never get fatigued. And it's just really good. So take note of this trick, it can really save you some games. There's also maybe some Fatigue Katsus coming up in the future, it's also really good against. So whenever you have fatigue matchup, always have 2 Phoenix Flames in your deck. You can still get fatigued by damage, of course, because Bravo has a giant hammer that can also deal damage, which forces you to block sometimes, but yeah, those are just really good. So then we have Ravenous Rebel. Ravenous Rebel is just a solid card. Usually it is about 3 attack on average, because you also have some yellows and some blues in this deck. But yeah, just attacking for 4 go again is very good most of the time. Also unlocks Blaze Headlong. If you have 2 in hand and you reveal a blue, just arsenal the other one. That's the only thing I would say for this. Then you have Rising. Rising is just a good starter. Sometimes you can play it as the second card if you have a Spreading Flames in hand or a Flamecall Awakening to make that one cheaper. Sometimes you can even scare your opponent into them blocking this card. If you just act a little bit suspicious, like Spreading Flames, they might block it. It's sometimes happened to me. But yeah, usually if your opponent is good, they won't block it. Then you have Ronin Renegade. Yeah, that's just another starter, nothing special here. Then we have Snatch. Snatch is just an insane card. If it hits, you draw a card, and it's already 4 attack. So yeah, some cool tricks with Snatch. In an aggro mirror, you can just play Snatch as your starter if you have an Art of War in hand. It's something I really like to do when you're behind. Just play Snatch, nothing else, and then your opponents probably will block it or not block it, and then you play Art of War and you activate Snapdragons to make yourself draw a card and activate Art of War, which can really make your turn rather insane. Snatch is something you want to enter combat chain with. I wouldn't Snapdragons it most of the time if it's not needed. But yeah, just a really solid card. I just see it as an extra Salt Wound or Lava Burst most of the time, and it has some upside. Then Spreading Flames, we have 3 of them. Spreading Flames can be really insane. You kind of have to sequence your turns well. So you first play Spreading Flames, and then you usually play another starter. Then when you have 1 resource left, you can activate Vi to play your Phoenix Flame, and it also gets buffed by the Spreading Flames. And then you can play another starter, so it gets buffed. So be aware of your sequencing when playing Spraying Flames, because usually you can get a lot of value about it on it. And also be aware Emberblade can also be buffed, because this says draconic attacks and not attack actions. So your Emberblade can also be buffed to 4 power if it's on draconic chainlink 4. Yeah, then we have Art of War. Well, this just apart from Bouncing Links, the strongest card in the deck. Yeah, in the worst case it can pitch for Emberblades, but most of the time you just get a lot of value off of just one resource, since it doesn't really cost you any cards. Usually just play this in the reaction step, so your opponent either has to block and then take 1 damage, or you can just also, if you're not sure what to play, just first play Art of War, then see what you draw, and then navigate your turn from there. If you have an Art of War, you just want to keep as many cards as possible, because then the value just goes up tremendously. Then we have Salt the Wound. Salt the Wound is actually a really good card. It's a 3-block, a yellow, and it can just do a lot of damage. In the arrow mirror, your opponent will not block at all, so usually it will go for about 7 or 8. It's also really good with Bouncing Links, as I've said before. Yeah, so just a really solid card overall. Soulbeat Strike, it's just a blue 3-block, also has 2 power, so it will activate Shuko most of the time. Yeah, it's just blue, it blocks 3, it's pretty good. Then we have This Rounds on Me. This Rounds on Me, I just really like whenever you're going first. You can just play it, attack with a card, so they have to either have to block with the extra card or take the damage. And then it will just give you a bonus for the next turn. It's just really good in aggro mirror if you're going first, because then it can really save you the game. Because if you're going first in an aggro matchup, you're way less likely to win that game, and that's the reason why I play it main board. It does have a little bit of downside though, that it doesn't work with Reinforce the Line, and you don't really want to draw the Art of War or E-Strike or Snatch. But I think for so far the risk is worth the reward, because there's so many aggro mirrors and you really want to have some way to get an edge in those. Then we have Warmongers, also just a blue 3-block. If you choose War, it will not affect you at all, since you literally have no non-attack actions except for This Rounds on Me. So it's just really strong. Play this against Azalea and Dromai, for example. It can really screw their turns, especially Azalea, Dromai too. Also, it can work against Brute, but in really specific cases. Like if a Rhinar is just keeping cards in his hand, he probably has a Blood Rush Bellow. So in some niche cases, you could also play that there. So now let's go over the sideboard. We have 2 Command and Conquers. Usually you play this card when playing against Azalea, because it's good, because they always want to keep an arsenal. Or you want to play this when going second in the aggro mirror, since your opponent is way more likely to have an arsenal then, and it can really screw them. We found 2 is the sweet spot, 3 is a little bit too awkward, 2 also sometimes is awkward. We don't play it against Dromai, because it can just brick your turns sometimes, and well, you don't really need poppers. But if you see a Dromai that's heavily tagged against Vi, like playing Mage Master's Boots and Tome of Fyendal, you can play it as like a joker or a trump card. You can still do that, but I wouldn't do it to be as consistent as possible. Then we have Reinforce the Line. Reinforce the Line is really good against Bravo and Uzuri. Against Uzuri, it's just really good because they can't really interact with it. They only have Shred, but they can't do that trick with the Nerf Scalpel Flick Knives, because when you have a sink below, they can just Flick Knives their Nerf Scalpel and it will go down to 3 defense. And when you block with a 2-block or something like that, they will still hit. So Reinforce, really good against Uzuri and Bravo. I won't play it against Azalea, but I'll come to that later. So Sink Below is really good against Bravo. You just need it to prevent Dominate, put it in your arsenal, and be safe against dominated attacks. However, be a little bit careful against Bravo, because good Bravos will know when you have a D-React in arsenal and just start blocking out your cards. So be aware of that. Then this is new addition, that all you got. I just want a way in the aggro mirror to gain an edge, and I feel like that all you got can sometimes just gain you two value, and yeah, that's just really good. With Tunic, then we have Mask of Momentum. Mask of Momentum is just solely for Dromai. Dromai can't really make dragons against you like multiple, because you can just kill the dragon, and Phoenix Flame on another dragon to draw cards. So you really need this against Dromai. It makes your dragon clearing much easier, and Dromai players hate this card. However, if it gets destroyed, you can still win. Yeah, be aware of that. Don't give up. By the way, Tunic I will not play anymore, because I used to play it against Icelander. I will just remove it, and I'll add one copy of Infectious Host. And I really like this, because this was one card I suggested to Sander and to play, but he said, yeah, I like it, but it's not good enough. But now it gets to go in, and I'll just, I'll speak about it now. Infectious Host is so cool, because it's really good against Azalea, Riptide, and Uzuri. This card can be truly insane. It's just a chain ender. Whenever you're against Azalea and she gave you an inertia or blood rocks or both, you can just play this card and give it back. So I really like it against Azalea, and I'll change it in a second. I just really like that card. It has such spike potential. At Worlds, I played a Riptide and I sided it in. I didn't get to give a frailty with Infectious Host while I still could. It's never been good to me yet, but I'll see one moment where it's insane, and I'll just keep it in for that reason. Then lastly, we have the Spellfray equipment. These are just solely for Kano. You have the chest and the hands equipment. Spellvoid 2 will really lower their kill turn potential, because you can just pop these on the Aether Wildfire to really lower their damage output. That's the deck as it is. That's all the cards. Now I'll just go over the different matchups and tell you what I do in them, and how you should side with them. So this deck list is also in the description with all the matchups added. Usually I don't like when people don't share their sideboard guides, since you then kind of just have to figure it out on your own and you don't know what to do. So the sideboard guide is also in this deck list. Don't worry about that. I'll just go over them quickly. So let's start with the first matchup, Azalea. In Azalea, you'll just board out 2 Brandwood Sinnerclaws and keep the rest in. So, wait a minute. You'll board out 3 Brandwood Sinnerclaws and play the Infectious Host. So, how does this matchup work? Azalea is one of the toughest matchups Vi has. And this is purely because Azalea has so many disruptive attacks. Reddening Ledger is very painful for you. Remorseless does a lot of damage. Codex of Frailty isn't fun. She just has a lot of ways to screw you, essentially. And the way you would play this matchup is just pick your moment. Azalea is prone to bricking hands, and when that happens, you'll strike back with full force and put her on the back foot. So, in this matchup, you just play Pouncing, you add your 2 CNCs and your Infectious Host, and you just try to not block at all, unless she has a good turn with a Remorseless or a Reddening Ledger. If Reddening Ledger is hitting, you should block with as much cards as possible, because you can only play 1 card. If Reddening Ledger hits, the best card for you to play would be a Command and Conquer, or an E-Strike, or an Infectious Host if your opponent played a lot of buffs on it as well. We chose to not include the Sink Belows and the Reinforced Alliance, because you're just playing into Azalea's game. If you make the game longer, their deck will just be better and more consistent than if you try to catch them at their weak point. There are some games in which Azalea just totally high rolls the shit out of you. Don't care about those. That happens. You can't win those games anyway, so don't play into their strategy. Don't play the D-reacts. Just go as hard as possible and you will win more games. Was our conclusion. So yeah, just not block. Play out your big turn with an Art of War and pouncing and hope you win. It's just an aggro mirror. Kind of just a race aggro mirror. So that's Azalea. Then we have Bolton. Well, Bolton is just play your most aggro cards and just do your thing. Don't really worry about it. Then we have Bravo. Bravo is pretty interesting because in this matchup we play 66 cards. The cuts are kind of difficult because you kind of want a lot of cards against Bravo because they can fatigue you by dealing damage, by making you block with cards. Bravo is a weird matchup because they can either block a lot or present you with a lot of disruption. There are some Bravos who play Tunic now to play a CNC Tunic counter pummel to just regain tempo. But overall, what you should do is just set up big turns, play out your cards as efficiently as possible, and if you can, get a sink below or a reinforce the line in arsenal to catch their big attacks. I think this matchup is favored for Fi, simply because we are too efficient at dealing damage, while Bravo is very prone to bricking or not having correct disruption against our turns. We have a lot of ways to deal with the disruption, like if they have a Spinal Crush, we can just block with a card, for example, play E-Strike, Arsenal, a D-React. We have Art of Wars, which should be really good, and yeah, Bouncing Links is really a deal breaker in this matchup. At first we tested with Mask of Momentum, but we just felt like Bravo had too much armor to block those on hits, and Mask was just better overall since it just deals a lot more damage. So don't be scared, play Mask, just play your game plan, block more than you're used to. You have your equipment, Flame Skill Furnace and Shuko. Wait with blocking with your Shuko, because your Shuko will do a lot of damage over the course of the game. Your Furnace, don't use it instantly when they have a dominated attack. Just look at your hand and try to play out an efficient turn. Like, what can I do with this hand? Just try to make the trade as efficient as possible, and you really try to save your equipment and your D-reacts for the big dominated attacks. So that's Bravo. Then we have Dash, OG Dash. OG Dash will usually either try to fatigue you, which you can't be fatigued since you have 2 Phoenix Flames, and you just do a lot of damage, or they'll try to race you. Racing you just doesn't really work because we are just the most consistent aggro deck out there. Be aware for maximum velocity and the Pulse Wave Harpoon, the card that makes you reveal your hand and block with a card of your opponent's choice. Be aware of those cards, but yeah, overall that should be a walk in the park most of the time. Just go aggro, just play out your hands as efficiently as possible, and you'll get there. Then we have Dash.io. Dash.io is an interesting matchup. It's also just an aggro race. Muscle with Bouncing Wings really helps. We found that Dash.io just doesn't present as much damage as Fi on a consistent basis. In that case, we don't play CNCs. I'd maybe play That's All You Got in this matchup, but I'm just kind of testing that still. But overall, your deck should be really good against Dash.io. Don't block. Don't block anything. Boom Grenades, we don't care. We just want to put out as much damage as possible, and we should always end up ahead because we have Bouncing Links. So yeah, that's Dash.io. Then we have Dorinthea, which is an interesting matchup, because in this matchup they can either be fatigue or they can be aggro. Aggro is also one of your bad matchups, just because their on hits are so strong. Like they can get a lot of counters on their Downblade, which makes playing the race really hard for you. Against Dorinthea, just go second, and they'll probably attack with Downblade. Just throw your whole hand in front of it. Don't care if they have a Twinning Blade, whatever, because we don't care about that. We're just playing the game. We don't care if our opponent high rolls. That happens. We're just playing our proactive game plan. Don't care about anything else. However, when Dorinthea gets a lot of counters on her Downblade, like for example, say 3 or 4, if she plays a Glistening Steel Blade, then you can reset the Downblade by just putting your whole hand in front of it, maybe with an equipment, overblocking like 3, I would say. And then she can't hit again, and her counters will go off, and then she has a new turn with no counters, which we then won't block at all again. So Dorinthea, you don't block at all, except when you have a lot of counters. You reset with blocking with your whole hand, over blocking 2 to prevent them from going over with an attack reaction, and then just going on and on and on. Also against Dorinthea, you play 3 Sinks. I really like these because if you go first, you can put one in Arsenal, and if they attack with a Downblade, you can just block with a Sideboard from Arsenal and it won't trigger Reprise. So that's why I really like playing Sync in this matchup. Also in this matchup, you have to play 2 Phoenix Flames because they can also be great X Fatigue, and well, I just told you guys how to counteract that fatigue strategy. So yeah, it might sound hard, but it's actually pretty simple. Not blocking, resetting when they have counters, and just hope you get ahead. Go second. Dorinthea, we have Dromai. Dromai is also pretty interesting. The only matchup we play Mask of Momentum in. We play Mask of Momentum because I said for the dragons. This matchup, you also want to go second, which is kind of a difficult one, but if your opponent generates Ash, no problem. This matchup is so favored, you can usually just win it by clearing dragons. That's really important. You shouldn't ignore dragons. You have to clear them. Keep your calm, clear the dragons, and it will be good. However, Dromai can have some nuts turns. Don't be very sad when you lose, because Dromai is a very powerful, crazy deck that can put out crazy turns. I've actually lost to Dromai this weekend when she played Tome with a 5-card hand into a Chromai, Asvolai, Yendurai, CNC while I had an Arsenal. Well, that turn alone is just like 30 damage, so don't bother. They're just high rolling, though we don't care. Apart from that, if they block a lot, try to set up some big turns by putting an Art of War in Arsenal. If you only have a 4-card hand to use it with. If they're blocking a lot, just put it in Arsenal to set up a bigger attack. And yeah, overall, try blocking their Calorias. However, if they have a Caloria, I would just put a Flameskull Furnace and a Shuko for it. Because we don't want to really give them any more value over that. You kind of want to keep your Shuko, so if you have a bad card in your hand which you can block with efficiently, do that, but otherwise you can just throw those 2 in front of it. And usually this matchup will just go very well for you. Okay, then we have the Aggro Mirror against Fi or either Katsu. Well, I hate this matchup. It is so toxic. But yeah, that's what you get for playing a toxic deck like Fi. You get the worst outcome in the Aggro Mirror. This matchup is just really dumb, because whoever wins the die roll has a massive advantage. And the way this works is you don't deal damage, because your opponent just blocks your first turn. Maybe you leak 2 or 3 damage. Then your opponent plays, you take like 15 damage. Then you play your turn, and you'll always end up as the first one who's blocking. And blocking is very bad in Fi because most of your attacks block 2. So you'll probably just lose. However, if you go first, try to Arsenal an Art of War if you have it, or play a Disrounds on me, then you can still win. Your opponent can still brick, so keep calm if you lose the die roll. Just focus on making the best plays possible. And one important thing, this matchup is all about tempo. it's not about efficiency at all. It's all about who is the first one who blocks. So what I mean with that is you don't want to get the most out of your cards. Of course, you want to build the biggest turns possible, but you don't really want to save cards or not attack with something because it's more efficient later. No, that doesn't matter. You just want to play it out as soon as possible, as fast as possible. Sometimes you even want to put your Phoenix Flame on the bottom as soon as possible because you just want to deal as much damage as possible and don't care about the long term, short term only. So yeah, if you win a die roll, always go second. It will really help you. So there's some discussion about what's better in the mirror, Pouncing Links or Momentum. I like Pouncing Links a bit more because it just swings the tempo to you if you can play it. However, Momentum is also really good because they can get 2 triggers out of it, and they can also block with it. So let's say Mask is usually 7 or 8 damage in the Fire Mirror, because usually it's Assault with some hits and Art of War active. Then you have Momentum, which is usually 2 block because it blocks 2, and you usually get about 2 hits in at most. Now, if those 2 hits are both 3 value, Mask of the Momentum will be a little bit more, but if you can make them block, if you can block one on hit with like a Flameswell Furnace and a Shuko, then Mask will only trigger once, and then Pouncing Links is definitely better. So yeah, I would say just play Pouncing Links. It's objectively better than Kodachi Fai. It's just way better. But yeah, in reality it's pretty close. But yeah, this deck is just overall more consistent than Kodachi Fai. Kodachi Fai has a little bit higher card quality in Bittering Thorns, for example. But this deck is just overall way more consistent, just way more good at doing this thing than Kodachi Fai, because Kodachi Fai can also kind of brick sometimes. So yeah, that's it for the aggro mirror. One thing for the aggro mirror too is CNCs you should board in when going second, and this is because your opponent likely has an arsenal when going first, so that becomes really good. So the cards I'd cut for those are 2 E-Strikes, since E-Strikes are really not so good in aggro mirror because they make you use 2 cards, and it's not efficient at all. It doesn't give you any tempo, as much tempo as other cards. So 2 E-Strikes for 2 CNCs if you go second, and if you go second, enjoy the game. So that's aggro mirror. Icelander is dead, luckily, so we don't have to talk about that. Then we just go to Kano. Kano, you just play your... oh, wait a minute. We also definitely play Snapdragon Skaters. Kano, you go second. It's a race. They'll try to kill you with their combo. You'll just try to kill them as fast as possible. The 2 Spell Void really helps. Just use it on their Aether Wildfire, and it will be good. I've considered putting in 2 CNCs in this matchup, but I just think it's too clunky most of the time. It should be really good at pressuring their combo, but yeah, usually I'll just play your most consistent deck as possible, and just don't block. You can't block because you have no AB, and just try to kill them before they kill you. Then we have Levia. Levia is the Brute matchup. In the Brute matchup, you also want to go second, and just do your consistent game plan of dealing a lot of damage. You don't want to block their on hit. They don't really have on hits, but you don't really want to block because you will do more damage in the long run than they cannot. Brute is a good matchup, but you can still lose if they have a Bloodrush Bellow, a few Bloodrush Bellow turns. So yeah, be aware of that. Then I'll just go to Rhinar in a second. It's the same thing. It's kind of on the fence if you should start or go second in this matchup. I've heard some Brute players say that you should start because they can intimidate your hand. But I just rather take the tempo and hit them as hard as possible. At last weekend's Battle Hardened last round, I got paired against a Rhinar, which did 13 damage to me turn 0, which felt really bad. But I still managed to win it with a Spreading Flames Art of War turn. So don't worry, just do your thing, and it will help. Then you have Maxx. Maxx is kind of a new deck. Also no very big changes here. Just your main deck. Maxx will try to set up their Mechanoid. When you have it, you can lose because it's just a lot of value. But overall, usually just go as hard as possible, and this will go really well. So it kind of sounds weird. Just go hard, like giving that as advice, but it's just what you should do as Fi. Your deck just does way more damage when not blocking and just attacking, and most hands you just play themselves. So that's what also makes it so nice to play it at a high level, because you can just focus on other things during the game, like your opponent's body language or whatever, and just play your hands and just be energized for the whole tournament because your deck is so easy. Then we have Riptide. Riptide, I'd still play CNCs because they have a lot of traps. I'd also play the Infectious Host, and I'll just remove the brands because why would you play those here? Riptide is actually a bad matchup for you. Luckily it's not around that much, but Riptide has a lot of traps which just really gain them a lot of value. Be aware of their legendary traps. They have traps in which they discard your whole hand and you draw your hand back except one card. So yeah, read those traps before you play against Riptide. You can definitely lose it. Command and Conquer is really good because they have so many traps, so try to keep this to deal a lot of damage. Infectious Host can also be really good. And try to set up some big turns, because they can just try to block a lot of your attacks out and dealing damage at the same time. So yeah, be aware of that. Then we have Teklavos and Arachne. Nothing really to say there. We have Uzuri, which is the last matchup I'll discuss because it's that interesting. This is the one I also need to add Infectious Host. I'll remove a brand. Uzuri is a matchup in which you should be favored. Uzuri just can't deal with your damage output since it's so high. The thing you want to do in Uzuri matchup is just Arsenal reinforce the line, and whenever they play a dominated attack or say a stealth attack, you can just block with a 2-block if it's convenient, and play this after they've revealed what their attack is. That's also one of the pros with this card, is you can play it after they've revealed, because you're not scared of CNC, because this is not a D-react but an instant. So this matchup, just block their on-hits if you really are scared of it, or if it can really screw you. Reinforce the line will just say, you're only getting 2 cards for your 2 cards, so that is really good. Apart from that, that's the Fi deck. It's really good in my opinion. There's not much you can do wrong with this if you just play out your cards. There are some sequencing things you'll get to learn if you play this deck a lot, like keeping some cards in hand to not give information away to your opponent. There's also one thing I will say, is that when you have a matchup in which you are really free in how you express your tempo, like matchups that block a lot, I would arsenal a starter sometimes instead of playing it, because what can happen is your opponent can just block your 4 card hands every time. And if you Arsenal starter, you can just alternate between like 3 card hand and 5 card hands, in which they have to leak more damage. So beware of that. And also, something I'd like to note is try to get as much value as possible out of your Shuko. So try to trigger Shuko every turn, and if you have a card that's 2 or less base power, instead of playing it when you have already activated Shuko, just arsenal it for the next turn, so you can activate Shuko that next turn. And apart from that, I think I've talked about everything in the deck. I think it's very solid. You can also play Kodachi if you like that, but overall I think this is easier and more consistent. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions at all about the deck, be free to ask them in the comments. If you like this video, please subscribe and like it. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer it. So last of all, another shout out to Sanderneeft, which put in a lot of effort in this deck and helped with a lot of the matchups. We really tested this deck and think it is really good. Most of the deck again is from him. I'm just trying to teach the deck to newer FI players. So yeah. Thank you for watching and see you later.